Welcome to the Voter Interest Project's candidate interviews for 2023. I'm Alan McPheeters, the Executive Director of the Voter Interest Project. Our mission is to provide voters with the information they need to make informed decisions about government, candidates, and ballot measures. Our focus is local. We cover Island County, its cities and towns, and various special districts, as well as the representatives from the 10th Legislative District. The 2023 elections are local and nonpartisan. We're covering 44 elective offices on this year's ballot, including mayors, city councilors, school board directors, and commissioners for hospital, port, fire, parks, and cemetery districts. 67 candidates filed for these offices during filing week in May, and we've invited all of them to do interviews for you. We also have extensive coverage of these elections and the actions of these government agencies on our website, voterinterests.com. The following interview is with Angela Ewert, who is running to be commissioner for District 3 at the Port of Coupeville. We provided a list of potential questions to the candidate in advance of the interview. All right. Well, good evening. Today is Thursday, September the 7th, and we're here with Angela Ewert, who's running for Port of Coupeville Commissioner in District number 3, which is the southernmost of the 3 districts in the port. Angela, welcome to the Voter Interest Project.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I'm really excited to have this conversation. I'm looking forward to what we unpack here.
Great. Now, where are you? Are you at home today or?
I'm actually on mainland today. I had to come back for an appointment, but I'm back to the island tomorrow. So yeah.
Great. So this is your old home.
This is a in-laws home.
In-laws home. Okay.
Loose term in-laws. We're not married yet, but yeah.
Scheduled? Date on the calendar? Not yet?
Not yet.
That's okay.
That's okay.
I met my wife through a dating service. It took me 4.5 years to figure out that she was Miss Right. So
you know what? Everybody's got their own timeline. So
right. I used to feel bad about it, but I've met people who've waited even longer.
My parents were on a 7-year plan. So
7-year plan. Very good. All right, let's do a little just some quick stuff here so people get a sense of it. I mean, clearly you're engaged, not married. So no children.
No children.
Children, okay. And now, did you grow up on Whidbey or somewhere in the area, or did you move here? How'd you get here?
So I was born in Edmonds and then raised in Marysville, Washington, and then we have always had family homes, like, aunts and uncles and kind of extended family, grandparents who lived on Whidbey Island, and we would spend so much time here. And then in 2021, we just kind of looked at ourselves and said, we're spending so much of our time here. Why don't we just commit and, join the community that we love so much? So we made the decision and we haven't looked back since.
Outstanding. So now, where'd you go to school? Edmonds.
So I actually graduated from Marysville Pilchuck High School, and then I got my bachelor's at the University of Washington, the Bothell campus.
Very good. In what did you study?
Law, economics, and public policy.
Ooh, that's an interesting combination.
Yeah, I loved it. It was
right in your wheelhouse.
Feel like school.
Very good. Yeah. Now, did you either before or after college serve in the armed services at all, or?
I did not.
Okay.
My dad was stationed at NAS Whidbey, and so I think that was what also drew us there. Is we were spending so much time at Fort Casey and that kind of thing, and so we just love the island. So now my dad's he's jealous. He's like, I wish I could live on the island. I'm like, you have a home to visit.
I get a little pushback sometimes from people who don't live in North Whidbey. Why do you ask about this military service? So, but I live in Oak Harbor, where it's a big deal.
Yeah,
folks on Camino and in South Whidbey don't care as much.
I love Oak Harbor. It's such a great central landing location.
Yeah. What is your day job?
So I work for a Snohomish County elected official. He's a county council member, and I am his legislative aide. I have been doing that since April of 2020.
Oh, very good. I know one of the commissioners or council members over there.
Who's that?
Group. Nate Nearing. Just kind of tangentially.
Nate's great. He is really fun to work with.
I'll bet. I'll bet.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so now here on the island in the Coupeville, Central Woodby area, are you involved in any other kinds of community organizations or political organizations or anything like that?
So I'm involved with what was previously NAMI Snohomish County, but NAMI Snohomish County has now joined up with Island County. So now it's called NAMI Snow Isle, and NAMI is the National Alliance for Mental Illness.
Oh, okay, very good.
Yeah, yeah. I have a family member who had a psychotic episode, and so I'm very closely tied to the organization and the folks who run it. So
sure, kind of a personal stake. Very good.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. All right, now you kind of set the table. How is it you've decided? Well, first of all, you moved here to Whidbey just recently.
Yes.
Okay, so having moved to Whidbey, how did you decide you wanted to become a port commissioner?
So I just kind of started talking to neighbors, and they started giving me, we live really, our house is really close to the Green Bank Farm, and they, were talking about events that the Green Bank Farm used to host, and how valued of a property it is. And then people in folks in Bonaire and Ledgewood, I was chatting with them, and they how much they valued the wharf over there. So I just thought that it was a really good intersectionality of what I love to do, which is the political, meeting people, kind of community engagement piece, and then like just trying to be a more involved in my community, especially as I'm somewhat of a newcomer here, although I've been coming here for a long time, but just kind of getting more engaged with the folks who I call my neighbors.
Very good, very good. Now, do you have? You're I'm sorry, you said a legislative aide?
Yes, yes.
So that gives you some kind of insight into kinds of questions that government agencies generally have to deal with. As a legislative aide, do you liaise with the people in Olympia, or how does that work?
It's sometimes definitely during session we have a lot of conversations and a lot of engagement, just because obviously there's priorities that Snohomish County is focused on.
Sure.
So we kind of have like a third party entity that lobbies isn't the right word, but that advocates for Snohomish County on our behalf. So kind of like right now we're already setting the stage for what are our 2024 legislative priorities. So I don't have I have direct connections, but I'm involved in those conversations, but it's not me going to Olympia per se.
Fair enough. Okay, very good. So do you think that gives you some background, that's something that you would bring as a port commissioner to the Port of Coupeville?
Yeah, I think the job that I currently do has just given me a lot of insight into how governments operate, whether it be something as basic as constituent inquiries. What are people asking about in the community? How are you responding? What resources are you connecting them to? All the way to budget. What does a budget look like? How do you practice fiduciary responsibility on behalf of the taxpayers? So I think that I've learned a lot in this position, but I think it positions me well for the port commissioner position.
Very good, very good. And the budget for the Port of Coupeville is about $8.5 million. I cheated. I found that out last night, and I don't know how much research you've done on the port, but where is that money being spent? Do you have some?
Yeah, so I actually have it pulled up here. So a lot of it is in maintenance and repairs, and for like their equipment, and there's obviously employees that we retain and benefits. So there's quite a lengthy list of expenses versus revenues, but I think so far that there seems to be a good balance of budget that I've seen on previous years' budgets that keep the wharf and the farm alive and the entity of the Port of Coupeville. I do want to, in this position, I would want to explore more options for revenue streams as I think about challenges that honestly not just government agencies are facing, but organizations as a whole are facing, as far as operating costs going higher, as far as, and then because of labor cost increasing and goods and services increasing. So how do we provide more opportunities for our community to come engage with these properties, but also how do we find a nexus of how do we find revenue from those engagement opportunities?
Well, that reminds me of one thing that the port is doing, and I actually haven't looked into this for a while, so maybe you have more information than I do, is back in April, they had applied for a grant to put electric vehicle charging stations at Greenbank Farm.
Right.
Which doesn't sound to me like a natural thing for the port to do, but they are talking about it as a potential revenue stream. Is that in their wheelhouse? Is that something they should be doing, or is it?
Well, I think about the chargers that currently exist at Greenbank Farm, and although they're not, they don't charge people to use that utility, I do think it is a draw for visitors and a community benefit alike to come to the farm and charge their car for 40 minutes and frequent the shops and go for a walk at the farm. And I think that if there's federal or state money on the table, that we would be remiss if we didn't at least apply for a grant and see if it's available. And then if we can create a revenue stream off of it, I think that, we just double down on a utility that we're already offering folks that is free.
Yeah, that's the part that I don't really understand. Sometime back, we were taking a look at, I don't have an electric vehicle, so I don't really have any skin in the game, but I was looking at charging stations on the island. And there's a handful around, some up here at Safeway and clearly the ones at Greenbank Farm. As far as I can tell, nobody's charging any money to charge your vehicle.
I only know this because I own an electric vehicle, but there's a few chargers in downtown Langley that they do charge. So yeah, but yeah, the Greenbank Farm has solar panels, which offsets the cost of operating a charging station because you're harnessing solar to charge them. So, but the Langley ones do not have solar, so which makes sense why they're a charge schedule on those ones.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing that the port has been up to lately, it's kind of gone by the boards now, but was this whole notion that they would buy the airport.
Yes.
And it struck a lot of people as odd that they would buy a property that lies outside of the district boundaries.
Yes.
Now, ultimately ended up they couldn't muster the financing. But was that a good idea to begin with? Is that something the port should be doing?
I don't. It was a tough decision. That's why I think the meeting went almost 4 or 5 hours long. But I think it was a little bit out of our wheelhouse. I think it was especially something like an airport where there was, you think about fuel tanks, you think about hangar repair, something that is kind of not that we couldn't ever be ready for that, but I think that the fiscal analysis and really understanding what it meant for the Port of Coupeville to take on that responsibility, but then also what is the benefit to the community? I just don't think that a lot of those questions had been thoroughly investigated enough to make a decision that approved the selling, or at least the next phase of a sale. So I think it was a good decision for us to kind of bow out of that opportunity, but if I don't think that's the case for all upcoming opportunities, I just think that one wasn't fully vetted enough. I didn't feel like it had enough community buy-in, and I don't think the fiscal impacts of what does it cost to, prepare the site and then, or, do any maintenance and then to operate it throughout its longevity. I don't think that was thoroughly conducted, and I think that was just a timing issue. I think we were on a tight timeline to kind of do that thorough analysis, which is why it was a hard decision to make. But I think we made the right choice by kind of bowing out and saying, not this one, but maybe next time.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. So you're on the ballot, and this is a 4-year term. So if you were elected, you'll be on the ballot again in 27. You have something in mind, something specific that if you were running for re-election 4 years ago or 4 years from now, you'd look back and say, hey, here's what we accomplished. Here's why we should return me to office.
So there's 2 things that come to mind. One is I'm part of you know, as cliche as it sounds, I really want the community to have more touch points with the wharf and the farm. I really want more events. I've been talking to neighbors, and she pulled out this bookmark of, you know, events that the farm used to host, you know, like an adoption fair, essentially, that waif they threw with waif, and Loganberry Harvest Festival. And I just want more touch points for the community and at both properties. And I think a valuable way to measure that is, one, tracking attendance, although that can go either way. It depends on people RSVP or, you know, sign up. But two, seeing what impact it has on the local businesses that touch those properties, and seeing, hey, what did your sales look like when we hosted a harvest fair on Sunday, September 10th? And then the other one I think that we should really be focused on is broadband access. I think that's a conversation of access, equity, and, to be fair, a necessity in the world we live in today. So kind of to measure that, understanding, like, what are the grants that we receive from federal or state dollars? How are we implementing them? How, you know, what does our access maps or utility maps look like compared to 4 years ago? Are we doing the work that we said that we would do on the behalf of the constituents?
Now, so it's interesting that you bring up broadband, because I was reading a story this morning about broadband access that's being put in. I think it's in Montana. And obviously very rural places in Montana, hard to get to. And they said some of those furthest out, it's going to cost $50,000 or $60,000 per property to get broadband out that far, which seems not very cost effective.
Yeah.
So, and I know that this is a big topic, especially Jan St. Clair's running point on that for the county.
Right.
Is this an area where you could, I don't know, subsidize installation of Starlink receivers and get the job done at a low cost? Or
I think honestly that would take a very collaborative approach. I don't think it's off the table. I just would be interested to know, have other government organizations had success with working, you know, if it was the Port of Coupeville and the county commissioners and maybe the state or the federal government, what does that collaborative process look like? What's the timeline? Does it make sense? I don't think it's off the table, especially when we talk about how rural some of the places on the island can be. When you think about, you know, digging utilities, or, just basically getting the utility to a house, it might be a viable option. I'm not sure if I can speak well enough to what other organizations and government organizations at that, what success they've had in that collaborative approach.
That's fair. That's fair. The other thing that comes to mind, and this is actually coming back a long ways now, is this notion that the port created this industrial development district. And on the face of it, I mean, the industrial development district is the boundaries of it coincide with the boundaries of the port district. And it's basically a property tax for, I'm not entirely clear on what it does, but it was brought into effect without any kind of a vote. They just put that in. Is that the right way to create a development district, or would it have been better to have that on the ballot?
I always love this conversation. We talk about it a lot at the county, because there is this argument about taxation without representation, and that is a fundamental piece of who, the United States is. I'm sure it was a hard vote to take. Living where we live, taxes are high. They feel they feel tight at times, especially for those who are low income and living below the poverty line. I don't know if it was right. I always believe that going to the voters, even if it's just to, let voters know, like, hey, we're talking about this. These are the conversations, just a community engagement approach to say, please come to the public meetings. I think that's always the approach to take. I also know that it's hard to get people to vote on a tax. especially where we live. So I see both sides of the coin. It's just, it's a hard argument to make in government,
Yeah.
honestly. But people want services, and those services cost money. And I think it is just a matter of reading the room. Right now, Snohomish County, we have a 9% bank capacity, and we can take a little bit of it or all of it. And it's just like, folks are under such a hard time already. Like, now would not be the time to do something like that. And just understanding like the true assessment of like, what is the impact that this kind of tax rate has on people?
Yeah.
Is it appropriate? Is there people, do we need to go out and talk to communities? Which the answer is always yes. But those are just kind of my top of mind thoughts on that.
Sure, sure. The airport was a big deal and kind of brought a lot of attention to the port, but the bread and butter, every month we see this kind of come up on their agenda, is the various projects to repair the wharf.
Yes.
And to maintain the farm. Do you have any sense of why these projects are taking so long?
My understanding, or at least my read on it, the wharf at least is one I'll speak to, is because of its location. It's right on the seafront. You have pylons. It's a really sensitive environment. It's not cheap to have people come out there and do that kind of work. I always think about the ferry system. Why don't we have new ferries? It's like, it's a costly thing. It's a big project to take on. Obviously, the wharf to a new ferry is oranges to apples, but I just think about, economies of scale when I think about why does it take so long? Why is it so expensive? It's nothing's free. I would hope that we can get some grants for shoreline projects, because that's exactly what it is, and not leave any federal or state money on the table if the project is fit for that kind of whatever that program looks like.
Yeah.
But it's a costly thing. It's a labor intensive thing. It's not like building a house. You have basically a dock with a building that floats over the water, and you have to be very considerate of the ecosystems you're touching there too.
That's true. That's true. Let's circle back to when we were talking about things that you wanted to accomplish. You were talking about increasing the events at the wharf and at the farm. Do you have in mind that those are events that the port puts on itself, or are you focused more on how you sell those properties, rent out those properties for other kinds of organizations to use more frequently?
I think that it's not a mutually exclusive thing. I think that there's a multi-pronged approach, that there can be kind of private events, weddings, birthday celebrations, that kind of thing, which I do think happens at least at the farm. But I'm mainly thinking about community events that the community hosts, and we collaborate with the town of Coupeville or Island County, and we host events like Mussel Fest that bring people to the beautiful places that we love, and then also help our small businesses who are still kind of recovering from the pandemic to have more touch points with folks who might not necessarily come to the island otherwise.
Okay, so in a sense, I mean, a lot of the things that happen in Coupeville, the Arts and Crafts Festival, I think a couple of other those events are put on by the Chamber of Commerce. But I don't know how far the Coupeville Chamber of Commerce's mandate goes, if it covers Greenbank Farm. So you're kind of thinking that you would fill a similar kind of function, at least for the Greenbank area, if Coupeville's chamber isn't covering that.
I think so I cannot remember the name of the board, but there used to be kind of a citizen led board that would kind of recruit and vet events for both the wharf and Greenbank Farm, and they would kind of do a promotion saying, hey, we have this event space, these are the things we've hosted in the past, something like the I cannot remember the dog adoption. There was like, it was like a walk with dogs that were up for adoption
Right.
that was hosted with WAIF. So they would kind of organize and be in charge of leading those kinds of efforts to host events at both places. So, and maybe it looks like, you know, developing a board that with folks that sit in Coupeville and Green Bank to kind of advocate for our community and our properties to go and, you know, recruit people to host these events and find collaborative partners with, and just bring folks here.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Probably something you'd want to be in touch with the, well, they used to call it the Would-Be Camino Tourism Board, but they're rebranding to Embrace Would-Be Camino now.
Yes. Yes.
Sound like it'd be a good partner for you. Very good.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're getting kind of close to the end of the time. And I want to make sure that we cover this part. If people want to know more about you and your campaign and what you'd like to do at the port, what's the best way for people to reach you? Facebook, or website, or what?
I have a website that I will send to you after this interview. It's called it's just my first name, Angela M, which is my middle initial, Ewert.com. Okay. So I'll send that to you in a link. That's a good way to kind of see who I am, see what my professional experience is, see what I have a campaign page that just basically talks about what I want to do if I were elected. And then there's a contact form there. But honestly, I'm not on Facebook very much. I do have a page, but I don't check it as much as I should. But email, phone, I want to be as accessible as I can and transparent as I can. So those are probably the best methods to get a hold of me. Facebook, I'll try to be better about, but my website and certainly email and phone call, text, I'm always available.
Great. We will put all those ways to contact you in the description of this video on YouTube, and then in the post that shares that. So we'll make sure that people can get to you.
Perfect. Thank you. I would love that.
Great. Thank you so much for doing this. I think it's been a good conversation.
Thank you. So this is really important work, and not just for me, but for the constituents and the voters to have some access to folks who wouldn't otherwise have access. So
yeah, especially these things just a little bit further down the ballot. You can say, well, I've never heard of these people. What do they do?
Exactly. So, you get like I think the limit is like 120 words on their voter pamphlet blurb, and you're like, I don't know who they are or what they do. So yeah.
Exactly. And then I don't know, is the League of Women Voters doing a candidate forum that Coupeville Port Commissioners will be participating in? Or?
I'm not sure. I haven't been contacted yet, but that doesn't mean that they're not hosting one. I know usually they do, and it might be that it's, you know, they reach out in the last week of September or something closer to the election, but I haven't heard yet.
Okay, fair enough. Well, at any rate, we'll get this video out there and people get to learn a little more about you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thanks for reaching out to me. I really truly feel honored and grateful. So
my pleasure. All right, we'll talk again soon.
All right, thanks, Alan.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, thank you for watching our interview with Angela Ewert, a Port Commissioner candidate in District 3 of the Port of Coupeville. We invite you to subscribe to our newsletter, available in 4 local editions: Camino Island, North Would-Be, Central Would-Be, and South Would-Be. The newsletter arrives in your mailbox every Monday morning with news and events from your part of Island County. Subscribe to our newsletter at voterinterests.com/subscribe. And look for more of these candidate interviews as the election season continues. Thank you and good night.